Today on Co-op for Two, our first impressions of the cooperative game BombBusters. You're watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
Okay, what are we doing today?
So BombBusters, this is our first impressions. We've done a couple of these now because we've been playing a lot of these games that are scenario-based.
Campaign,
yeah. And this is one of those games. It is broken up into 5 different boxes, and they're these kind of cutesy little bosses.
66 missions.
Yeah, a lot of missions, and we are currently only on the first boss. So we played the training missions, which are the first 9 missions, and then we played the first, I think the first 3 or 4 of the first boss's missions.
And 13 games in total, 13 scenarios, and we failed some.
We did fail some of them a few times here. Yeah. But yeah, so.
Okay, let's give a quick overview of how to play so you have some idea. Cooperative game, 2 to 5 players. You've each got a rack of these wires. So each scenario will tell you how many of each color wire to divvy up. You divvy up among the players, and you take turns cutting wires. The goal of the game is to have all the wires cut, and there are certain rules about when you can cut wires on your own trays, which only you can see, or whether you guess what a wire on another player's rack may be. If you're correct, you successfully cut it. If you're incorrect, you lose a life. If you lose too many lives, you die. There are some special abilities that come out. I guess if you were going to say the genre of game here, this is a deduction game with some push your luck elements.
And important to note, though, that some wires, like if you cut the red one, you instantly die. So it's very kind of a cool, there's some multicolors in there.
Sure. And there are rules about how you arrange these in numerical order. So ways for you to deduce what token is where and who has it.
So let's take I do want to make a couple just quick comments about this before we really get too into it. Number one, it's Pegasus Spiel. Okay, Pegasus Spiel. And they've been coming out a lot of good stuff, I feel like. Every time.
Well, this one, Spiel des Jahres, game of the year.
That was my next thing I was going to say. So firstly, that Spiel des Jahres, or excuse me, Pegasus Spiel is really come out with a lot of great stuff. And one of the things they seem to be doing quite frequently is kind of having this cutesy cartoon look on like a very serious subject. So this is, you're diffusing a bomb and it blows up, presumably we're both killed when this bomb goes off and whatever other property damage or other loss of life. So it's but it's like these cutely, like the villains, like this one looks like a Blofeld from Bond, right? So, and this is like these cutesy little animals. And they also did, which we both really, really loved. And I've got all 4 of them at this point, but the Micro Macro series, it's all these cutesy little cartoons.
Cute little creatures
like murdering each other and adultery and urinating on public things. So they have a good way of like kind of, because this is a family weight game, and as you mentioned, it did win the Spiel des Jahres. And so I feel like there's a couple of things that come with winning that award. One of which is that it's approachable, right, for families to play. And that definitely, I think, makes it this much more easy to swallow, don't you think, for a theme?
Yes. Well, let's talk about the thematics for a second, because this is interesting. One of the games that both of us immediately thought of when we were playing this is Hanabi.
Yeah.
And one of the discussions we had after playing this is how much of a nice step up having a story, a theme that felt compelling. Hanabi, you're trying to make colorful fireworks. Here, you're defusing a bomb, you cut one wrong wire, you die. It's a very abstract game, but having that theme of defusing a bomb really works here.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because I was going to talk a little bit more about the Spiel award and say the other interesting thing is that, additional being approachable, it's also, and as a family game, etc., and you want to be able to get it to the table easier. So I was going to mention that, yes, it's kind of following along the lines of the game, which also won the Spiel des Jahres, which is Hanabi.
That's right.
Right? That also won the award. And really, I think mechanism-wise, there is some deduction, and you're trying to help your teammates, but ultimately it's completely different than Hanabi, but weirdly, we both thought of that game first.
It is interesting that it feels a little bit like Hanabi, and yet mechanically looking for
Yeah.
stuff. It's hard to see.
So the deduction is where, but it has that feeling, right? Something doesn't have to be mechanismly
Well,
similar,
one
but it
of the
has a
key
feeling.
feelings is because you're frequently in a situation where you
Yes.
feel like I have to give information for the following
Mhm.
player's turn. I have to give them information, and often you have a move you can make, but
Easily, yeah.
you feel like I better
Yeah.
do something different to give them
Yeah,
information.
you always have to be thinking about your partner, in which we, of course, this is a cooperative game. We love cooperative games, and you want to cooperate. So there's a lot of cooperative games that do go out of their way to make it so that you don't have to cooperate, because people that don't like, that's a whole other side thing. But in this, you're like, I'm like, oh, cool, I can do this. Wait. But then what's Jesse going to do?
Mhm.
And so at all times you're doing that. But the theme itself, going back again, is really a great theme. Now they did have a couple other bomb busting games like Bomb Squad.
Fuse, you liked a lot.
Fuse, which I haven't played Bomb Squad, but I really like to play it.
Mhm.
But that idea of like, everybody can remember that in movies, like clip, like,
Mhm.
I think it's a really kind of an interesting and a perfect theme for this. Once you make a mistake, you could blow the bomb up. So it's really well done.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's sort of cutting to the chase that we're both really enamored of this
Of course.
game. So let's talk a little bit about what.
Sorry, I gotta
Yeah,
go back. So did the crew win Spiel des Jahres?
I think it did.
And it's actually kind of a little bit of a infusion of those two games, actually, because in the crew, you're going through these missions, and you're trying to help. It's a trick-taking version of that. A trick-taking game that's a cooperative, which was like really the first of its kind.
Yeah, I think so.
It's got some not some copycats now, but there's other games in that genre now. But this is like that, and I keep talking, especially recently.
It doesn't feel like the crew though. It feels a
well,
bit
it
like
does in the way that like, here's a simple thing, but you're going to go through all these scenarios, because Crew has like 80 scenarios or something too. This game, that's my total wheelhouse. I've been talking about it a lot lately, and we've ended up playing a lot of these recently, which is the idea of like, you get a good system, and then you're going to play through all these missions. Not only are they going to add complexity and difficulty, it's like an expansion in the box. It's like, hey, here's a great game that you're enjoying. Well, as you get better at it, we're going to throw these additional challenges at you. The two that I always go to are Sky Team and Magic Maze. Of course, we just played Regicide and reviewed that earlier today. Similar kind of thing.
Nice,
I mean, really love
short, little 30-minute games, almost like bite-sized games. You fail, you just start over, you do it again.
And this, is you feel like it's like a weird like reward system. You're like, cool, we beat this box. I mean, right in the back, you
the
can keep track.
is almost universally good.
Yes,
we'll talk about one.
You can go through and list them. And there's a cycle, like if you played 50 games of Ticket to Ride, right? Okay, you played 50 games. But if you get to check things off and say, hey, we got to the last game, it's like a little reward. It's like
how
a little
generous, 66 missions. How generous is that?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we haven't, of course, even really scratched the surface. We were just discussing today, like, are we just going to keep playing through this? I mean, it's
It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about components, because I'm going to show you some upgrades. So if you look here, you can see in the rule book, we've got these little plastic trays. Now, Greg has thrown his in the trash.
Sure.
But they're very flimsy, and the pieces are constantly falling off.
It's not terrible.
It's pretty
but
bad.
It's not the best.
And especially since you have to have two. If you play two players, you each get two trays.
And when you're putting them out and stuff, and then what you're doing is you're laying them in front, and and so someone will see that this is like next to this one, so this has to be like either a 9 or higher or whatever, and they can kind of fall sometimes and stuff. So they're not the best.
It's a little annoying. Yeah. But if you have a 3D printer, there are lots of models, free models available. And I printed a whole bunch, but these are my favorite. And you can see they're designed to fit in the box. They're the right size, and they flip up here. So on your rack, you would have your set facing you. And you line them up, and they've got a slot for each, so they don't move around. They stay nice and orderly. And when you flip them down and show the other player, sorry, it would go like this. You flip one down, so it slots in. They all stay very nice. And they've got letters, so your opponent, your partner, can say, show me, is F a 4, and then you would turn it over. So these are my favorite little addition. They do make life a lot easier.
Yeah, and I know not everybody has a 3D printer. I don't have one. He luckily printed all this stuff out. But also, you can. I mean, if this is a game, which, and again, this is kind of cutting to the chase that we love this game. But if you're going to invest time into playing 66 different missions, that 66, I don't know, maybe you lose everything once or twice, or something.
So
You're going to probably play 150 games of this. It's probably worth it to, I would say,
track down a place to print them out.
Absolutely. You can find all kinds of places online that will say, hey, yes, they'll charge you, obviously, but I think it's well worth it for a game
So
like
I don't know the name of the person that did that model, but that's a brilliant model. There are some
this.
alternatives
Definitely
too.
put on the bottom screen, because this person did a very
And then I've also
job.
printed out a complete copy of the tiles, which I would call this much more optional, but we like to do planning sometimes when we play. We do our deduction. So it's nice to have a complete extra set of tiles so we can just think out loud and say, well, if this is a 5 yellow, if this is a 3-2,
I know
then
you have
this
this
is
and this left.
right. So we use this for our planning. This is optional, but these I would highly recommend.
Yeah, there's a couple other nice things about this. I do like that. Each mission has its own, its number, the name of the mission, like what to learn with setup rules, etc. And then you flip it over and it goes right here because it completes this little paper clip. I just like that. And then it has, you can refer to those as the special rules. A couple other nice things about this. These are.
Let's talk about this. Let me talk about this in a minute.
I was going to mention what?
I don't talk about how to use these yet. I want to talk about.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about that in a minute. But this is a good segue to one other thing, which is that we've only played the 2-player version, and all of the missions have special rules for 2-player versions.
Well, some of them.
Now, I prefer all of these cooperative games 2 players, but I have heard from people who have played at higher player counts that they are also loving it. There are some differences, right? Like with 2 players, exactly what your partner, all the tiles he has.
Yeah.
If you're playing with 5 people, you know what you have, but you don't know where the other tiles.
But everybody has less tiles.
It's true.
The other thing is that in 2 players, you control 2 tiles or 2 tile holders, meaning that you have 1 to 12 on one and 1 to 12 on the other. Meaning, sure, I might know that Jesse has 3 threes and I have 1 3, but I don't know which side those are on.
It is a very clever.
Yeah.
It does work, and it's not overwhelming, but it is weird. Okay. No, I want to talk. I want to talk about my favorite part of the whole experience, which is directly related to these. So we've played a lot. We play a lot of deduction games, and I'm attracted to deduction games, but very frequently I end up disliking them, and there are a couple reasons. There are 2 main reasons. One is requiring substantial memory of stuff. Like you're 3 turns in and you're playing a game and you're like, if I could remember what we did and what I saw, like in Hanabi, if I could remember what you had, then maybe I could make a smart decision, but I can't. And one of my favorite things, one of the most beautiful parts about this game is how little memory is needed. And the reason is this game gives you all these tools for keeping track of things. So you were saying what you can explain.
Yeah, no, it's just that like when you got all the 7s out, you don't have to worry about 7s anymore. You can put this here, and not only does that remind you that like the 7 has been played, but also it's see-through, so you can see that's the 7. It works beautifully, and then as you go, you're covering things up, and then you look and you're like, oh, they've got a slot there. It's a very small slot. And it's something less than a 4. Oh, look, there's only 3 otherwise available, right?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference in terms of memory, but this helps your memory, but also all of your racks, when a person guesses something, right, you've got your wires that are always sequential, but anytime a wire is guessed, bop, it goes down. They can see it. They can see exactly where it was. And so it means all of your deductions, almost everything, is laid out in front of you. And you can sit there and you don't have to worry about remembering stuff. There's occasional times when you have to remember.
Now, but the great parts are like any game, like think of code names. What's the best part of code names?
The instant death.
Yes, the assassin. And I think they've taken that and they put it in this game as well, because they put their wrinkle, and you always need that wrinkle to make things truly interesting. And that's the yellow wires and the red wires. This is such a clever part of the game, is that whatever you have, if you have the 7, the 7.1 and the 7.5 can only go after it, right? So like if there's no 7.1 or whatever, so essentially it has to be in that order. So it's like, okay, well, that could be a 1. It's before the 2 and it's after a 1. So it's another 1, or it's a 1.1, or it's a 1.5.
Yeah.
But it's such a clever way to be able to always arrange those accurately. Even though the yellow has no value, it's considered just yellow with no number value, and the red has no number value either, but it always sits out until the end of the game. Always that danger. And I feel like that's kind of what keeps you from just guessing all willy-nilly or knowing exactly what everybody has. You're like, okay. And then sometimes you look at your own rack and you're like, well, I see there's a 7.1 here and there's a space there that only all the 7s are out. So I know that has to be the 7.5. That's a red wire.
Yeah, there's lots of little deduction about, I have this, all of the things, all of the reds and yellows are unique. So you're like, if I have the 5.5, I know you don't have the 5.5. So that's where the gap could be in. And you were talking about the instant death being this nice hook. So you're always worried about, like, there's a real push your luck element to this game. And in the later missions we've played, it seems to come up more. But it's really fun because you're doing deduction most of the time. But sometimes your deduction can give you like a 50-50 chance of guessing something. And then you're like, all right, I think this is when we're going to have to take a chance on this. Can we afford to get one wrong? Yeah. If you have the red and I know I don't have the red, then that means you should probably be taking more chances guessing about mine. There's lots of little interactions of these little elements.
Sometimes it's worth just taking a guess as long as you know it's not a red wire. And let's say, because in a 2-player game, you can make 2 mistakes. So if you make a mistake, that person still puts out information. So sometimes you're like, well, I almost want it to be a mistake.
Yeah.
If I get a little information, or if it's right, then I can do this. You can keep playing that information card over and again. So it's kind of a neat thing, especially like if you want to try to get the yellows, those are very valuable to get out because they help, if you can self-cut all the yellows, like if some of the equipment will allow you to swap them, or you can do like, you can use some of the equipment to show where things are equal or unequal. That's very clever. And that does change the game up too. What kind of equipment you get.
Yeah, it's also another one of the very clever decision spaces here are when to use. These are all one-time uses that you have to earn. So you've got the secondary question occasionally, like maybe we should go for this number just so we can get this item to use it, and then who should use it, and when you should use it. There are all these little completely transparent decisions. You can see them, you can plan for them, you can anticipate them, but these little decisions, and you might even, because these games are so quick, we talk about the difference. You have a long game can tolerate a little bit more push your luck randomness than a short game can tolerate that more than a long game can. And when we play this game, we tend to slow to a halt and like work out the stuff that we can, which is very fun, especially because it's at the sweet spot of manageable deduction. But you could see a group saying, you know what, let's not take 10 minutes to plan that out. Let's just take the 70% chance. If we die, it'll be funny and we start the mission again. So depending on the style of your group, you could play it much more hardcore deduction and discuss it. That's another thing. We don't like limited communication games in general. And in this game, you can't talk about this, but you can talk strategy, and there's plenty to talk about. When we play this game, we talk very often about what do we know without revealing our cards, like what is possible to deduce, when is something worth taking a risk, what should we go for? A little bit of long-term planning, right? Like, let's go for this. Let's try to get rid of these.
So I'm going to talk about the 2-player experience for a moment, which is what we have. So you kind of have perfect information in terms of like at least knowing who has what. You might not know which rack it's on, but you know basically. And
often you don't know which yellow numbers and which red numbers are out. That's a huge, tricky part.
So generally, like the first decision you make is which information to give your partner. And you might say, look.
Wait, explain that, because I didn't explain that.
Yeah, right at the beginning of the game, you're allowed in most scenarios, the captain goes first and you put out one of these showing like where some number might be.
Another little decision at the start of the game. So you make that
started decision, and then it's like, well, do I give Jesse the 9 because he's got 3 9s and then he can take my 9 and then self-cut his 9s? Or do you, or do you just try to cut like big, like a blocky area? Or like, well, this is like, I got 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, and then 4. So maybe I do the 4 so they know that all that stuff. So there's a little bit of decision. That's one of the most important decisions in the game, I think, right off the bat. Then you kind of want to be able to try to get some of those numbers that you can self-cut. Sometimes you decide, hey, look, let's try to get one of these pieces of equipment so we can use that to help us. Do you prioritize trying to get the yellows out so that when whoever can cut the rest of the yellows, you have like those benchmarks. And then you almost always use your double detector very early when you have less information, so you can kind of test
one time per game use. You can reduce the risk a little bit.
And we try to split up the middle, but also like the easiest things to get, because this is another really, so the cleverest part of this design to me is the way the yellows and reds work. So interesting to me, right? Because you can't just, like, it's not a number anymore. It's just yellow, and it's like, but there's a bunch of them, and they're always to the right. They just screw up your planning a little bit and thinking. And the reds are instant death, which again is very exciting. But the fact that that sometimes the clever thing is that there can't ever be a 12.1 or 12.5. So there's never gonna have a yellow for 12. And 1, as long as the leftmost number or whatever is a 1, then like that.
Nothing to the left of no yellows
so
or
if you have
to the left of it.
So if you have an unknown and then a 1, that the one to the left of it has to just be 1. So often what we'll do is kind of nibble away at the edges a little bit, but then if you end like that, you'll have this big block in the middle at the end where it's very difficult. And then when to try to make a kind of a blind guess, because you're going to have to do that probably at some point, and if you can get some information out of that. And then also, if Jesse guesses a 5, he says, if I say, hey, Jesse, do you have a 5 here? And he shows me his 5. Which 5 do I show him if I've got multiple?
That's another interesting
Because, like,
decision.
do I put it so that he sees there's a slot there now? And he's like, oh, well, that slot must contain a 4. But it could be a 4.1 or it could be a 4.5. Yeah. So very, very, so many little decisions and stuff. But again, you don't have to remember everything. It's not like a big brain burner that you're remembering everything, right? That's what helps your bandwidth.
Yeah. Let's talk very briefly, without giving any spoilers, a little bit about the nature of the different missions. Like there's a time mission somewhere. I don't think that's giving away a spoiler. And basically you can imagine that new special item cards come out, and then we haven't seen that much else. I mean, but mostly we've been looking at different rules of configurations of tiles.
So I do want to mention that because like that is an element, because this is a deduction game. So you would think like it's kind of like chess where it's a perfect, like, right, there's no randomness. But there is one element of randomness, which is the equipment that you get. And some of it, I do think it's pretty neat because like there is some, like, I think
we're just showing you the cards you get from your first training mission.
Like these are pretty neat. You get like an unequals and equals, and you can put it here and say these two aren't equal.
And you have to think about what's the best strategy, what's the best way to use this, who should use it, when.
And sometimes you'll put that down. Like there's a little bit of that, like you have to trust your teammate, right? I'll be like, I would put this here, and then you'd be like, well, technically that could be any one of these 3 numbers, but you told me right now, you put this here right now, so I'm gonna be guided by that, right? Yeah. There's a little bit of that. So some of the equipment, like some of it, you can just flat out say this is something is here.
And some is more powerful than others.
The stabilizer, you can make a guess and not blow up if it's a red. But I think the most powerful one, excuse me, is the walkie-talkies.
Yeah, right? This is the one that lets you trade wires, and there's lots of things you can deduce from that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, so I mentioned already, but I think it's worth saying, is that it's a game like Hanabi, you're basically playing silent. This one, you really can talk through. When it's your turn, you're sort of talking through how you're thinking and what you know, and sometimes your partner can say, I don't know if you're...
Well, you have to be very careful about not
but maybe that's not a logical thing. The other thing that I think is interesting is there's definitely some randomness here. You can get dealt easier or harder starting setups, especially with the yellows and stuff.
But once it's dealt out, it's deterministic.
Yeah, but what I mean is if you play the same mission 3 times, it may be that the first 2 times you play it, you've got a very hard division of tiles. And the 3rd time you play it, you've lucked out. But the games are so short and there's so many that it feels like it's fine. Okay, so we got a hard one, we got unlucky, or we took a guess and got unlucky, or we got lucky. It's still enjoyable.
Now this genre as a whole of deduction, right? There's a bazillion games, right? There are some that are more game-like, that feel more like games where you've you know, where you're like Mystery at the Abbey, where you're like moving around and doing deductions and asking questions. And then there's stuff like Sleuth, where it's just like a pad of paper and a bunch of numbers, and you're like, do you have a 7? Okay, no. And then it's 45 minutes of silence for everyone. And there's a value in those kind of games, but this somehow is like, does not feel like, I mean, all it is deduction, but it doesn't feel like a dry, quiet deduction
it's deduction
game.
with informed push your luck.
Yeah.
But I really think it's a combination of two things. It's that the cognitive load of the deduction is manageable and it's interesting. But it's also like, think about the game you mentioned, Mystery of the Abbey. There's a whole bunch of deduction games that have the same similar feature, which is you got to take good notes. And you're looking at your notes, you're like, did I write that down wrong? Can I read what I did? Did I forget to do something? And how do I make sense of all this information? And that's just not the flavor here. It's all there in front of you. It's all manageable. And that means it's so enjoyable to focus on the deductive elements here.
Instead of the memory element. Yeah,
instead of the memory and note-taking elements.
But there's another benefit to that as well.
And speed of the game. Also, because it's such a short game, it feels fine.
But often, what's the number one thing you can think of when you play a deduction game with people? The number one enemy of that?
I don't know. Tell me.
Somebody makes a mistake, and then the
Someone
entire game
messes up the whole game.
They're like, oh, I didn't tell you I did have a 7.
It's true.
And now the whole game is ruined.
Rarely happens here. Although occasionally someone will misfile the tiles
I did that
in the
one
wrong
time
order,
in like 15,
and
but we fixed it.
It's easy to
But my
fix.
point is, like, you can't sink a game by accidentally saying, "Ah, shoot, I didn't meant to tell you I had a 3." Yeah. Well, guess what? Now we got to start the whole game over because, like,
we have to start the whole hour and a half game over again.
But this is like, it's the best of all worlds. It's amazing to me what a smooth, like, fun.
It's shocking how good it is.
I mean, I hate when people say this, and I'm going to say it. I think I probably every time I say something.
It's going to be a killer. You're going to say it's a killer.
Hanabi is one of my favorite all-time games. Why would I ever play that again?
Over this.
Forget it. Never. And
this is the killer. This is the deduction game killer. Feel.
It's got all these little levels to go through. It's all these bosses and all these tweaks to the rules to play. It's deduction. It's like thinky, but it doesn't feel like a dry, I mean, it feels fresh. And the theme is really great. I know you don't like the theme of Hanabi. I do think the Hanabi theme is good, where you're making a point-based. That's the other thing, though. Hanabi, like, you're trying to get a high score. You're making a wonderful display of fireworks and you're trying for a high score. I think just in general, it's nice when you say we won or lost. And that's what this game has. And, it's like, you get a little nervous. Like when you're like, I got to take a shot here. We're going to lose. Is that? And you're like, well, that was a red wire. We have blown ourselves to smithereens.
Well, I also think, I really think that one of the really important things about this game is that you could play it with someone who is not willing to spend that much time on the deduction and just enough time to make a good, reasonable guess. And if they guess wrong and blow up, you just start. It's 30 minutes. You just start over again.
Kind of to tie what you said and what I said just before you said that and what you just said, like, together. Like, there's a lot of people that like there's no way I would bring like Sleuth to a certain group, right? Or my family or whatever, my wife's family. I'm like, I would, but this, sure. This feels livelier. I don't know. It's just...
Absolutely. And they might not do the full deduction like we do. Like, there are times when you can figure something out if you spend 5 minutes. They're not going to do that. But so what? It just cuts their odds a little bit down more.
I should have mentioned this when we talked about the components, but this is kind of the funny part to me, is like, this is it's only a gentle ribbing. But it's like, this is not available yet. When you get the 8, which again is an incentive to maybe try for that 8, you move it there and you can see this, which actually I have a game mat I made for Lord of the Rings many years ago, just to save space. So you could go like this instead of like this, for exhausting cards. I have a better solution now, but like, sometimes you're like, do we have that? I'm like, well, Jesse, it's so clear. Yes, of course we have it. Like, it's like, this is, you're never going to really look at that. It's kind of funny, but it isn't. I mean, it does make sense. Look, this is unavailable. Now it's available. But this coloring, it doesn't really look like it's available.
All right. So you got anything more to say?
I mean, we didn't even talk about the fact that apparently, which we haven't even discovered yet, there's like audio clips first. You can scan.
There are QR codes on some of the villains, and there are some stickers, but they don't change. There are some rule stickers like a legacy game, but they're very minor. But yeah, apparently there's some QR codes for some of the bosses to read a little bit of story.
Can you think of a single deduction game that you would play other than this one in the rest of your life? That's out.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a new one, but I completely agree. This is by far the most enjoyable, both in terms of rich deduction and in terms of strategy and push your luck and what
replayability
with all these missions. I mean, it's really shocking. Yeah, shocking how impressed we are with this game.
Yeah, at some point, this is a little unrelated, I guess.
It may wear out its welcome by 66 missions.
I wonder though, like I was thinking about this today because I was like, could we go through like a bunch of games and you could say like yes or no, it won the Spiel des Jahres? I wonder how much weight that. I mean, certainly that does make a difference in terms of people being interested in it or looking it up. But it is a great award. I wonder, like, if we would have. I mean, it was out of print and we got Spiel des Jahres, and so they reprinted it. So I wonder if that's how it made it a little bit easier.
Everyone seems to be in love with this game, though. This isn't one of these games that is under the radar.
So.
All right, now, the expectation is that we will come back and record our final thoughts after we finish 66 missions. We are planning on playing through all of them, but who knows how long it will take us. You want to give it a rating?
Well, yeah, I thought that I was waiting for you to do that.
Okay.
Well, I should also mention, look, this is an incredible game. I love it. And I would suggest, if you're going to buy this game and play it, throw an extra $10 or $20 towards getting these things printed or whatever. Or if you have somebody that you know that has a printer, or somebody that will print something for you, or you're through your school or a local fabrication place. Yeah. I mean, I think that is well worth it. You'll enjoy the game more, and you'll be able to have these extra things for deducing certain parts and things like that. And you're playing 66 missions. You're going to play hundreds of games of this. You're going to get your use out of it. Yeah. That's my little recommendation.
All right, what's your rating?
10.
First impression
Easy
rating, 10, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, really it is. And again, like, it's a different kind of, I feel like we've been getting 10s out recently. Like
candy, like they're
it
candy.
really does seem like, but in reality, but this is a different kind of game than like a big epic. I think I did Fate of the Fellowship, miles away different, but this is like 10 minutes after learning it, you're playing it, or unboxing it, you're playing the thing, and it's just gives and gives.
It's very hard to think of another game that's got I give it a 10 as well. It's very hard to think of another game that nails deduction and push your luck with the fun theme and the hook of the instant
and playable
death and
by
stuff.
Anybody, really, anyone.
Yeah.
Come on, that's amazing. Do yourself a favor, go out and get BombBusters and get some of these things printed because you'll play a lot of it.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah,
okay,
it's pretty good. We're never going to do another afterwards thought of this. First impressions is it.
Don't need to.
I'm just saying we're never going to because we're not going to, like,
even if we're never going to. What's
we're not going to live long enough.